Alright, Muslim ladies, maybe you too are a Salafist who doesn't want to work, or free mix and who wears a niqab, gloves included, and desires abandoning the kufr lands for good. And lest we forget, you haven't dealt with any pesky jinn possessions either. But there's more. Number 4, I am not compatible with sisters who have mental health issues requiring prescription medication. Number 7, sisters with vulgar language are not suitable for me. And number 8, I cannot be with someone who has anger issues as I don't plan to live near a volcano. For better or for worse, the wild world of dating apps has fundamentally altered relationships and building connections for countless people. For every success story of a couple coming together online that would have never have met in the real world, the giant dating apps like Tinder are rampant with catfishing and fraud and, well, the inevitable dehumanization that comes with swiping through people, judging them based on a few pictures and often little to no biographical details. Now, if those things weren't harmful enough, what happens when you throw a dating app tailored for Muslim singles into the mix? Hey everyone, I'm Secular Spirit. In case you haven't heard of it, I'm talking about Muzz, or Muzz, the Muslim dating and marriage app with over 10 million single Muslims looking for love. So earlier this year, I came across a post on the ex-Muslim subreddit with screenshots of a Muzz profile of a Muslim man. You can find the original link in the video description below. And this absolute catch of a gentleman's bio starts with his list of conditions for his ideal partner. Now, I personally would have started with maybe a few details about myself in the section titled Bio, but to be fair, in my experience on dating apps, it isn't that unusual, I suppose, to see someone start with a list of conditions, although it is a bit of a red flag in my opinion. But here's where things get strange and where even for someone like me who grew up Muslim in the Middle East, it gets pretty shocking. Consider this gem of an opener before the 26-item list. Hi, please read my conditions to consider you. You must meet all of it. Now, a couple of quick notes before we get going. This is obviously just one profile and we can't judge all Muslim men who use Muzz or all Muslim men in general based on it. But, and there is an important but here, there's plenty of recurring themes all collected in this single list that I've seen expressed by average Muslims as well as Islamic scholars, and that have surfaced as problems for Muslim and ex-Muslim women in their relationships with Muslim men. So let's consider this a case study of those recurring themes and the different ways that Islam is used to teach men a distorted view of the world, relationships, and of course, women. And last note, a good number of these conditions aren't exclusive to Muslim men and could be the conditions imposed by misogynistic religious people in general, and some just to misogynists, theists, or atheists. So let's start with his conditions for someone's prior and current relationship and sexuality history. What you'll quickly notice with these is that they're all exclusionary. There's nothing in these that explain what he is looking for, just the negative things that will eliminate you from contention for his attentions. 1. I am not interested in someone who has been in a haram relationship or has engaged in any haram sexual experiences, not even a kiss for a virgin. By haram here, this Muslim is referring to things that violate Islamic law, and in this instance, physical intimacy of a non-mahram person. In other words, a person you are allowed to marry according to Islam. So kissing, cuddling, holding hands, as well as things like flirtation are all typically considered big no-nos. This is something I had trouble with even when I was Muslim, and my concerns about it clarified after I left Islam. Sexuality is such an integral part of our lives as individuals and to our society as a whole, and how can we figure out what we're looking for in a partner when we aren't allowed to experiment to gain experience? In the conservative Muslim mindset, and to be fair, many non-Muslim conservative mindsets too, words like experiment set off alarm bells. And the conservatives will argue that all things can be figured out once a non-sexual compatibility has been established and the couple is married. In addition, sex is more simplified in this conservative mindset, centered around having children and the man's pleasure. But as much as this might terrify conservative types, the reality of human nature is that sexuality and its connection to happiness and fulfillment of, dare I say it, both partners is complicated and in many ways mysterious. You need to figure it out by trying things, and it becomes more challenging to figure it out if you find yourself without any experience and now married to someone who is also likely completely inexperienced. Now, I'm sure a lot of couples figure things out just fine, but there are definitely dangers, emotional and physical health-wise, with being sexually active, whether in a marriage or outside of one. And while you could argue that having everything be within the simplified confines of a marriage could eliminate some of those dangers, those marriage confines can also be a trap for one spouse or both, if perhaps there are sexual incompatibilities, which can always happen. It's not an easy step to end a marriage, whether it's due to sexual incompatibility or for any reason, because it comes with all these obligations and stigmas, particularly within the Muslim world. So while being sexually active can come with risks, I do think it's better to be permitted to explore and learn about yourself as safely as possible, what you like and don't like, what works and what doesn't, before you get married and if you decide to get married, rather than follow the traditional mindset which restricts and controls sexuality through marriage and only marriage. Number 2, I do not want someone who is emotionally attached to a former partner, whether the relationship was halal or haram, even if she is a virgin. Sisters of haram relationship experience must refrain from contacting me, so please do not read further, as I mentioned earlier. Now, while I agree with the first part of this, that it's best to not get involved with someone who's still emotionally attached to someone from their past, notice here the repeated emphasis of even if she's a virgin. Being a virgin is simply not enough for this guy. Number 3, I am not open to sisters who have lesbian or bisexual tendencies, even if they have a past. Wow, well, besides the glaring and unashamed homophobia in this one, this focus on even if they have a past seems additionally harsh. So basically, you have to be a woman who has been untainted and pure her whole life. Converts, women who found Islam later in life, well, you're not allowed to have a past that disagrees with this person's requirements. Number 6, I cannot be with someone who is addicted to or consumes haram content, included. I'm open to an argument that the bleeped word here, it rhymes with corn, is exploitative of women and can lead to harmful addictions. But the thing that bugs me here is the idea of I cannot be with someone because, once again, they must be untainted and pure. This really comes through in the last sexuality relationship condition. Number 14, I am not equipped to support sisters who have experienced sexual trauma, so I wouldn't be suitable for them. Please don't match with me. Okay, so to summarize, you must not have any sexual experiences, even traumatic ones, that were out of your control. When he says he's not equipped to support them, I feel like that was already implied in the previous conditions, and I think it's safe to say that a Muslim woman who has experienced sexual trauma is vastly better off never interacting with this individual. What's truly an Islamic influence in these conditions is how much of this revolves around the toxic nature of sexual purity and the inevitable shaming of those who are not pure. This applies to both men and women, and I can say from my personal experience that I felt a lot of shame and guilt for my sexual desires when I was Muslim that I think still affects me to this day. But Islam's teachings and obsession in this area disproportionately affect Muslim women. Everything from honor killings often perpetrated by close relatives to examples like the case of Zafran Bibi, a Pakistani woman who reported being raped and was found guilty of adultery and sentenced to death by stoning in 2002. Thankfully, the sentence was overturned and she was eventually released. And yes, you heard that correctly. The punishment for adultery, according to several interpretations of Islamic law, is stoning to death. And mildly less brutal, the punishment for the unmarried male and female who commit fornication is 100 lashes. While these punishments are rarely put into practice, because I think even a lot of Muslims realize they're insanely harsh, it's precisely these kinds of cruel judgments that influence a Muslim man to make conditions like the ones we've just seen. And if things weren't unpleasant enough, we now move on to gender roles. Islam is obsessed with specific and static gender roles for men and women. And as this Muslim explains well, the Muslim sister is subject to many more restrictions than the Muslim brother. Number 9, sisters who travel frequently or have traveled without their mahram or have a desire to travel unnecessarily are not compatible with my lifestyle. Number 11, sisters shouldn't go gym. They should work out at home instead. Number 13, sisters who want to make side income or work part-time / full-time are not suitable for me. Number 15, sisters who are influencers, YouTubers. 24, stays home and doesn't get bored if husband is out working. She doesn't leave the house unnecessarily. And 26, I don't want sisters that have professions that deal with visiting people's home, or sisters that free mix. So basically, you can't work, you can't even advocate for Islam like some Muslim women do on social media, and you can only travel for necessities like, I guess, buying groceries and doctor appointments. Maybe Hajj too, the Islam mandated pilgrimage to Mecca, I don't know. And when he mentions not wanting sisters who free mix, he's referring to what is called ikhtilat in Arabic, the intermingling of men and women. Number 10, I am not interested in sisters who go swimming in public, even if it is only with other women. I follow Sheikh Ibn Uthaymin opinion on this. Now, I never heard of Ibn Uthaymin before, but I looked him up and he was a conservative Saudi scholar who died in 2001, and he had this to say about swimming.
فضيلة الشيخ هذا سائل يسأل أو سائلة تسأل تقول ما حكم سباحة النساء مع بعضهم في مسبح مغلق خاص بالنساء علما بأن النساء يلبسن لباسا محتشما.
ما فائدة المرأة من السباحة؟ عجيب. الرياضة. والله أنا لا أفتي بها، لأن هذا يفتح باب الشر، والنساء كما تعلمون ضعيفات في الدين والتفكير.
Okay, was he cryogenically frozen in 700 AD and just recently thawed out? It's apparently strange or astonishing for a woman to swim, and even when someone in the audience explained that maybe women could swim for exercise, he just dismissed it and, of course, didn't lose the chance to disparage women as weak in their thinking and religion. Another example of the feminism of Islam, I suppose. Number 17, must follow the way of the Salaf and follow the Salafi manhaj. So he follows the Salafi manhaj. I feel I could have just said that and 20 things on this list would have just been assumed. So Salafism is a conservative movement that advocates a return to what its followers consider to be the pure practices of the Salaf, the first Muslims, including the Prophet Muhammad and his Sahaba or companions. Salafists emphasize a strict interpretation of the Quran and Hadith and typically reject later interpretations. I mean, at this point, to me, it seems odd for Salafists to rely on a Western influenced technology like a dating app to find an acceptable Muslim wife, but hey, perhaps he tried out his list of conditions in the real world and found no takers and figured, hey, everyone else is using those dating apps, maybe I'll find the 3 women in the world who would accept all my conditions here. I don't know, but we're nowhere near done. Let's see if his already dramatically reduced dating pool can survive the rest of those restrictions. Following the Salafist mindset, this Muslim Casanova adds, Number 19, my future wife must be someone who gets along well with other sisters, no male friends. So okay, this follows with the free mixing thing. Number 20, her purpose and focus after worshipping Allah is to focus on her husband and nurture the children to become scholars, and tied to that, number 23, homeschool the children. Okay, so her job, her acceptable goal in life is tending to the needs of Allah. Then this Muslim, her would-be husband, and the children she will have to homeschool, away from the dangers of Western liberal education, I presume, to become misogynistic scholars just like Ibn Uthaymin. Number 21, she must believe that niqab is fard, which means mandatory, and wears it with gloves. I am open to sisters who doesn't wear it, but must have a desire to do so. Wow, how understanding, but of course this insinuation with her to must have a desire to wear the niqab means the day will come, inevitably, when he'll insist that she now has to wear one. And odd, why take the time to mention gloves to cover the hands and not emphasize the covering of feet too, considering there is a borderline mainstream fetish regarding feet.
Burka woman, with your sexy feet, Burka woman. My love for you, it grows every time I see your toes. Nail polish.
Following these, there's a couple of relatively mundane Muslim requirements that follow typical teachings. So number 16, sisters with tattoos are not compatible with my preferences, and 25, she must pray 5 times a day unless menstruating. And now finally we get to the even wackier and weirder blatantly Muslim stuff, as well as some random things that at first glance might seem like they come out of nowhere. But let's start with the Muslim stuff. Number 5, sisters who have been possessed by jinn in the past are not suitable for me. I can sense the disappointment of the Muslim sister who checked off everything on this list successfully, but she was possessed by a jinn, which is a spirit that can shapeshift or even be invisible. She did it just last year, so even though she got that exorcism, she's still out of the running. Yep, a lot of Muslims believe that jinn exist, and I used to believe in them too. It seems ridiculous, but hey, keep in mind that the majority of people believe in an invisible god, so why not invisible spirits too? And last note on this, I love that he specified being possessed in the past. So theoretically, if you are a Muslim sister currently possessed by a jinn, feel free to match with this gentleman. Number 22, make hijrah to Muslim lands and never visit kufr lands again. Family, of course, can visit. So never visit kufr lands, the lands of the infidel, ever again. Okay, so you must leave your home and likely family behind to live in a Muslim country. A big ask once again. I think this reflects a troubling and simplistic us versus them mindset amongst some Muslims. The diametric opposition between the good Muslim lands and the non-Muslim kufr lands that can never be visited again because they're too sinful, too depraved. Imagine the self-righteousness of that coming from someone who seems to still be living in the kufr lands and is benefiting, at least in some ways, from living there. This is the exact kind of clash of civilization thinking that needs to be avoided, whether it's from Muslims or racist far-right populists. And now we get to a couple of weird conditions about interracial relationships. So there's number 12, I'm not interested in sisters who have a particular racial fetish. Number 18, I'm not open to sisters who have been in an interracial relationship. If it failed then, it won't work with me as well. However, I'm open to sisters who have never been in one. Okay, I'm not sure I understand these two. Let me know what you think about them and what he means in the comments. Best idea I have is he's referring to women of any race but his and who's pursuing him because of his race. And he might also be assuming that if they had previously been in an interracial relationship and broke up, the reason for the breakup could only be that there were insurmountable cultural differences that the woman of a different race couldn't handle. I don't know. And alright, Muslim ladies, maybe you too are a Salafist who doesn't want to work or free mix and who wears a niqab, gloves included, and desires abandoning the kufr lands for good. And lest we forget, you haven't dealt with any pesky jinn possessions either. But there's more. Number 4, I am not compatible with sisters who have mental health issues requiring prescription medication. Number 7, sisters with vulgar language are not suitable for me. And number 8, I cannot be with someone who has anger issues as I don't plan to live near a volcano. Alright then, what do these have to do with Islam? I can't say for sure, but the mindset that comes from Islam definitely doesn't make these additional requirements surprising. This man wants a compliant woman who serves her husband, and she better not have any issues that he has to deal with, and she better not get angry or curse ever. That added sassy jab of not wanting to live near a volcano gives us a final teeny tiny glimpse into why this person may be single and how he may approach an argument with the woman unfortunate enough to marry him. Perhaps there's more to this bio beyond this list of conditions. I don't know. I've only seen the screenshots. But what I want to know is, what is this person bringing to the table besides imposing such restrictions? Even for a Muslim Salafist woman, does this sound like a partner anyone would want to have? Petty, domineering, entitled, and extremely restrictive. It all sounds like a recipe for complete disaster. And like I mentioned in the beginning, obviously Muslim men are not all like this. I know some Muslim men who would find issues with 90-80% of what's in this list, but many other Muslim men would agree with a lot of the things here, even some of the truly awful and sexist things. And that scares me. So what can we take from this? First thing is that Islam's teachings don't occur in a vacuum. It's not a simple case of, well, they believe in a God who brings them comfort and peace. The teachings impact how Muslim men and women view the world, relationships, and themselves. And finally, I want you to really think about how Islam can be presented as feminist, given so many of these conditions are prevalent in Muslim communities, and given how these sorts of ideas bring definite harm to so many women. That needs to change, and it starts with looking at the roots of where these ideas are coming from, the cornerstones of Islam, the Quran, the Hadith, and the teachings of Islamic scholars over the centuries that are detached from the improved understanding we now have of what is healthy for a relationship. There's no such thing as perfect relationships, obviously, and every society will always see problems arise from the sexual and romantic relationships within them. But a Muslim mindset, from the extremes of this specific person to a more common view of a Muslim man, are, for the most part, perpetuating old problems and making them worse. Thank you for watching as always. I'm Secular Spirit, and please do like this video if you enjoyed it and found it informative, and please also subscribe for more videos like this one. And before I go, I wanted to make a special announcement. This August 31st to September 1st, I will be in Oslo, Norway to attend Celebrating Dissent, an event that will bring together writers, advocates, YouTubers, and more, many of whom are ex-Muslims, for a celebration of blasphemy, apostasy, and freedom of expression through discussions, poetry, film, protest art, and music. Other attendees of the event include Ibn Warraq, Maryam Namazi, Ali Rizvi, Lawrence Krauss, and friends of the channel Apostate Aladdin, Zara Kay, Haram Doodles, and Reason on Faith. I've left a link in the video description if you want to buy tickets or learn more about the event. I'm really looking forward to it, and if you do make the trek, I also look forward to perhaps meeting you in person. Thanks again for watching, and I'll be back with another video very soon.